They attack your honor in a crowded room. All eyes are on you, waiting for you to break. They expect rage, they expect weakness. They have laid a trap for your emotions. Instead, you give them nothing, and in that nothing, you unleash a weapon more powerful than any word. This is not submission. This is the art of war. There is a moment, familiar to all, that feels like a dislocation of the soul. It is the sting of disrespect. A dismissive word, a condescending glance, a public questioning of your value. It arrives like a sudden poison, and the body's first instinct is to recoil, to fight, to expel it. You feel the heat rise in your chest, a fire climbing your neck. Your jaw tightens, a primal defense mechanism. Your mind, a loyal but untrained soldier, scrambles in panic, searching its arsenal for the perfect weapon. The flawless retort, the crushing comeback, the phrase so sharp it will cut the offender down and restore your stolen honor. This is the common path, the path of the pawn. It is the reaction of the unprepared, the predictable spasm of an ego under attack. And it is, in every conceivable way, the weakest position you can possibly take. The world trains you to believe that power lies in the response. It teaches you that silence is submission, that a failure to retaliate is a sign of defeat. Popular culture glorifies the quick-witted hero who silences a room with a single devastating line. We are conditioned to see these exchanges as duels, where the last one standing verbally is the victor. But this is an illusion, a carefully crafted trap for the undisciplined mind. When you react emotionally to disrespect, you are not demonstrating power. You are confessing to the entire world the precise location of your weaknesses. You are handing the keys to your inner state to your enemy, allowing them to dictate your feelings, your actions, and your focus. The person who slighted you threw a stone not at you, but at the waters of your composure. By erupting in angry ripples, you have done their work for them. You have proven their attack was successful. You have taken their bait. Consider the nature of this trap. The disrespect was designed, consciously or not, to provoke a reaction. It is a test, an invitation to descend to a lower battlefield, a chaotic arena of emotion and ego. When you lash out with anger, you accept the invitation. You step into their frame, you play by their rules, on their chosen terrain. Your anger confirms you are hurt. Your clever retort confirms you are invested. Your defense confirms you are insecure. Every predictable reaction is a move on their chessboard, not yours. You become a puppet and your emotions are the strings. The offender pulls and you dance. You believe you are fighting back, but you are merely performing the role they assigned to you. This is the fundamental error from which all strategic failure is born, the belief that the battle is external. You are so focused on the enemy before you that you fail to see the enemy within. The impulsive, prideful, reactive self that is so eager to prove its worth that it will lead you directly into ruin. This is the path of weakness, a cycle of action and reaction that consumes vast amounts of energy for no strategic gain. It leaves you drained, replaying the encounter in your mind, endlessly polishing the comeback you should have used. You may even win the exchange in the eyes of the crowd, silencing your opponent for a moment. But what have you truly won? You have shown your hand. You have revealed that you are easily provoked. You have taught your adversaries exactly how to manipulate you in the future. You have traded a moment of hollow satisfaction for a long-term strategic vulnerability. You have won a meaningless skirmish, only to make yourself more susceptible to losing the war. The conventional response is a dead end. It is the way of the amateur, the emotional, the strategically blind. But there is another path, a path that is not taught in the clamor of society, but in the silence of ancient wisdom. It is the way of the strategist. Sun Tzu, the master of this art, wrote, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." This is the foundational principle you must grasp. The unbeatable response to disrespect is not a response at all. It is a refusal to engage in the battle on the enemy's terms. It is the deliberate, calculated, and powerful act of making their attack irrelevant. The strategist understands that the first and most important victory is always internal. Before you can control the perception of others, you must first master the impulses within yourself. When faced with the sting of disrespect, the strategist does not see an attack to be countered. They see information. They see a tactic being deployed against them, and instead of reacting to the tactic, they observe it. They feel the anger rise, but they do not become the anger. They acknowledge the pride that has been wounded, but they do not let that wound dictate their actions. This separation, this space between stimulus and response, is where all power resides. In that space, you are no longer a puppet. You are the puppeteer. You are not the pawn being moved. You are the player observing the entire board. The enemy has sent an arrow flying toward you. The reactive person tries to catch it, or to fire one back in return. The strategist simply takes one step aside. The arrow flies past, striking nothing but empty air. Its energy is spent, its purpose is defeated, and you have not had to lift a finger. This is not passivity. It is a highly active, highly disciplined form of engagement. Your silence is not empty. It is filled with observation. Your calm is not weakness, it is a fortress. By refusing to provide the emotional reaction your opponent craves, you create a vacuum. They expect a fight, a drama, a conflict. You offer them a mirror. In your unshakable composure, they are forced to confront the ugliness of their own behavior. Their aggression, meant for you, finds no target and recoils upon itself. They are left standing alone in their own chaos, their immaturity exposed for all to see. You have subverted the entire dynamic. You have refused to play their petty game, and by doing so, you have elevated yourself to a higher plane of strategy, a plane where their attacks cannot reach. You are the mountain, and their words are merely the wind. The wind may howl, but the mountain does not move. The ultimate power is not to defeat the person who disrespects you, but to render their disrespect impotent. It is to build an inner state so solid, so centered on your own purpose and value, that the opinions and attacks of others become meaningless noise. They cannot take what you do not give them. They cannot wound a target that is not there. This is the beginning of true mastery. It is the quiet, unshakable confidence of one who knows that the battle for honor is never won in a shouting match. It is won in the silent citadel of a disciplined mind. The attempt at disrespect only lands when you accept it as a blow. The true strategist never offers a target, for the arrow of insult can only find its mark in a heart that is willing to be pierced. To deflect it requires not a shield of anger, but a fortress of peace. Comment "My peace is my weapon" to internalize this principle, and subscribe for the coming lessons on the art of building this inner fortress. To build the inner fortress is not to stack stone upon stone. It is to understand the invisible architecture of power, to master the principles that govern psychological conflict. These are not rules to be memorized, but currents to be felt, harnessed by the master strategist to navigate the turbulent waters of human interaction. The unshakable composure you seek is the natural result of applying these ancient axioms of war to the modern battlefield of the ego. It is here, in the subtle application of these truths, that you learn not merely to endure an attack, but to dissolve it before it can ever truly form. This is the domain of invisible warfare, where victory is silent, and the most decisive maneuvers go entirely unseen by the uninitiated. 3 pillars uphold this silent art: the strategy of formlessness, the command of the terrain, and the penetrating weapon of knowledge. First, you must master the principle of formlessness. Sun Tzu teaches, "Be subtle, even to the point of formlessness. Be mysterious, even to the point of soundlessness." What is this form that you must abandon? It is the solid, predictable shape of your emotional reactions. Anger has a form. It is rigid, hot, and aggressive. Defensiveness has a form. It is brittle, anxious, and contracts inward. Wounded pride has a form. It is sharp, bitter, and desperate. When you manifest these emotional forms, you become a solid object. You present a clear and stationary target for your adversary's assault. Their insult is a projectile, and your predictable reaction is the wall against which it is designed to shatter, creating maximum impact. The untrained individual believes their only option is to reinforce this wall, to make it harder, stronger. This is a futile endeavor. The strategist knows the superior tactic is not to fortify the wall, but to remove it entirely. To become formless is to become like water or like the air. When a sword strikes water, what happens? The water yields, embraces the blade for a moment, and then closes behind it, leaving no trace of the strike. The sword's energy is completely absorbed and dissipated without harm. When a fist punches the air, it meets no resistance. The aggressor expends their full force only to exhaust themselves against nothingness. This is the essence of your unbeatable response. When the salvo of disrespect is fired, you consciously refuse to solidify into a target. You do not suppress the feeling of anger. You observe it as a cloud passing through the vast sky of your awareness. You do not deny the sting of the insult. You allow it to pass through you like a current, neither holding onto it nor being carried away by it. You offer no resistance, no friction, no solid surface for the attack to land upon. You are present, yet you are not there. This state of being has a devastating psychological effect on your opponent. Human conflict is a dance of energy. It requires give and take. An aggressor feeds on the energy of your reaction. Your outrage is their fuel. Your pain is their validation. When you provide none, you starve them. They have prepared for a confrontation, for a contest of wills. Instead, they find themselves shadowboxing in a void. Their momentum carries them forward into empty space, causing them to lose their balance. Their carefully aimed blow, having missed its mark, now makes them look foolish and clumsy. Their aggression, unreciprocated, turns inward and exposes itself as the crude, desperate gambit it truly is. They are left in a state of profound confusion and impotence. They cannot fight a phantom. They cannot defeat an echo. By being nothing, you become everything they cannot handle. You have won, not by overpowering them, but by making their power utterly useless. This is the subtle and profound victory of formlessness. The second principle is the command of the terrain. Every conflict takes place on a specific ground, and the nature of that ground heavily influences the outcome. In psychological warfare, the terrain is the context, the frame of the interaction. The person who disrespects you is attempting a strategic maneuver. They are trying to drag you off your chosen ground and onto theirs. Their terrain is a low-lying swamp of petty ego battles, personal drama, and emotional reactivity. It is a place of mud and confusion, where vision is obscured and noble purpose is forgotten. To engage with their insult on their terms is to willingly descend into this swamp to wrestle with them. You may be stronger, but in a swamp, everyone gets covered in mud. You sacrifice your dignity and clarity the moment you accept their invitation to this low ground. The master strategist refuses this invitation. Instead of descending, you occupy the high ground. The high ground is a position of psychological and moral superiority, built from your unwavering commitment to your own mission, your own principles, your own sense of purpose. It is a place of clarity, perspective, and emotional detachment. From this vantage point, the aggressor's maneuvers below seem small, frantic, and ultimately insignificant. You seize this terrain not through arrogance, but through a deliberate and powerful indifference to their chaotic games. Your strategic silence is a declaration that you are on this high ground. Your calm demeanor is the flag you plant upon its summit. When they hurl an insult, and you respond by calmly redirecting the conversation back to the important matter at hand, you are demonstrating that you operate on a different terrain. You are communicating without words. Your skirmish is irrelevant to my war. Your battle for a moment of dominance is a distraction from my campaign for a lifetime of achievement. This instantly reframes the entire power dynamic. You are no longer two equals in a duel. You are the mountain, and they are the angry tremor at its base. The mountain does not concern itself with such minor disturbances. This forces a choice upon the aggressor and any who might be observing. They can either abandon their futile attack and attempt to meet you on your higher ground, effectively ceding the victory to you, or they can remain in the swamp, exposing their own pettiness for all to see. In either case, you have prevailed without ever joining their struggle. You have controlled the environment of the conflict by refusing to leave your position of strength. The person who is dedicated to a grander vision cannot be pulled down by those with no vision at all. Your purpose is your terrain. Occupy it without compromise. Finally, you must wield the most penetrating of all weapons, knowledge. Sun Tzu's most famous dictum holds the key. Know the enemy and know yourself. In 100 battles, you will never be in peril. This is not a suggestion, it is the absolute foundation of strategic invulnerability. But the order is crucial. The journey begins inward. To know yourself is to conduct a fearless reconnaissance of your own inner world. You must map your own psychology with the dispassionate eye of a cartographer. Where are your insecurities? What are your deepest fears of inadequacy? Which specific words or actions trigger your emotional defenses? What parts of your ego are most fragile? Most people spend their lives running from these questions. The strategist confronts them head-on, because true strength is not the absence of weakness, but the perfect knowledge of it. When you are intimately aware of your own triggers, they lose their power over you. An adversary's probe searching for a weak point finds nothing to exploit, because you have already illuminated and fortified that territory yourself. You cannot be ambushed in a land you know perfectly. Once this internal mastery is underway, you can turn your gaze outward to know the enemy. This is not about gathering intelligence for a counterattack. It is about achieving a level of perception that transforms the nature of the insult itself. You must learn to look past the words and see the source from which they spring. Disrespect is rarely a pure, calculated strategic assault. More often, it is a raw signal of the other person's internal state. It is a broadcast of their own insecurity, their jealousy, their pain, or their desperate need for significance. The person who needs to belittle others to feel big is revealing their own smallness. The person who attacks your competence is often screaming their own fear of being incompetent. When you learn to see this, the entire event changes. The insult is no longer a personal attack on your worth. It becomes impersonal data. You cease to be the victim of their aggression and become the analyst of their weakness. This shift in perspective is the ultimate de-weaponization. Their words, once sharp projectiles, become hollow, harmless artifacts. You feel not injury, but a distant sense of pity. This knowledge grants you a calm that cannot be feigned, for it is born of genuine understanding. You are not hurt because you see they were never truly aiming at you, but at the ghosts of their own failures. These three principles, formlessness, terrain, and knowledge, are not separate tactics, but a unified philosophy of engagement. Knowledge allows you to see the true nature of the attack, which helps you occupy the high terrain of purpose. From that high ground, it becomes effortless to remain formless, allowing the now transparent attack to pass through you without effect. This is the invisible art of subduing the enemy without a fight. You do not crush them. You simply make their efforts and the battle itself entirely obsolete. The principles of invisible war are not mere external tactics. They are the direct expression of a profound internal order. Having understood the theories of formlessness, terrain, and knowledge, you must now turn your gaze to the source from which they emanate, the battlefield of your own mind. For it is here, in the silent, unseen theater of your consciousness, that all true victories are forged and all catastrophic defeats are born. The world outside is but a reflection, a lagging indicator of the wars won or lost within. To seek dominion over the perception of others before achieving sovereignty over yourself is the ultimate strategic folly. It is to build a magnificent palace on foundations of sand. The first, the final, and the only truly essential conquest is the conquest of the self. This is the war of a lifetime, fought not with sword and shield, but with awareness and discipline. Your own mind can be your greatest asset or your most treacherous enemy. Within you is a kingdom. Your sovereign will, your strategic intent, is the rightful ruler on the throne. Yet this throne is constantly under siege. The emotions, rage, pride, fear, impatience, are powerful and ambitious warlords. They rise up with compelling arguments, cloaked in the language of justice and self-preservation. Rage screams that an insult must be met with fire. Pride whispers that your honor has been irrevocably damaged and demands immediate public retribution. Fear insists that silence will be misinterpreted as weakness, leading to further attacks. These inner voices are relentless insurgents, attempting to usurp control and plunge your kingdom into the chaos of reactivity. The average person lives in a state of perpetual civil war, their throne occupied by whichever emotional warlord shouts the loudest in the moment. They are not a ruler, but a vessel for internal chaos. The path of the strategist is to become the undisputed sovereign of this inner kingdom. This is not achieved by crushing the emotions, for their energy is vital. A kingdom without passion is a dead one. Instead, it is achieved through unwavering observation. The sovereign does not descend into the muddy fields to fight every battle. He sits on a high throne, observing the machinations of his court with perfect clarity and detachment. You must learn to do the same with your thoughts and feelings. When the fire of anger begins to burn, you do not become the fire. You become the observer of the fire. You note its heat, its color, its intensity, and its fuel source, the wounded ego. You acknowledge its presence without granting it the scepter of command. You say to it, "I see you. I understand your purpose, but I am the one who rules here." This is the exercise of ultimate power, to feel everything, but to be controlled by nothing. This internal discipline is an act of profound alchemy. You take the raw, volatile lead of your primal reactions, and, through the steady heat of your awareness, you transmute it into the pure gold of strategic insight. Impatience is refined into perfect timing. Anger is transformed into focused, disciplined energy. Fear is converted into heightened caution and meticulous planning. You do not destroy your inner forces. You domesticate them, turning wild beasts into powerful allies who serve your highest purpose. This is the first and greatest victory. When you have established this unshakable inner peace, the provocations of the external world lose their penetrating power. An insult is no longer a spark threatening to ignite a civil war within you, but merely a piece of information to be logged, analyzed, and filed away by a calm and orderly administration. The peace you establish inside is the very peace that projects outward, becoming a shield far more impenetrable than any angry retort could ever be. Only from this throne of inner sovereignty can you begin to consciously shape the way the world perceives you. This is not an act of creating a false persona or wearing a mask. A mask can be cracked. A persona can be exposed. Instead, it is the art of selectively revealing the truth of your disciplined state. It is the deliberate calibration of your external signals to reflect your internal order. The world is desperate to categorize you, to put you in a box so that it may predict and control you. Is he aggressive? Is she passive? Is he arrogant? Is she insecure? The strategist eludes all of these crude classifications. The goal is not to be loved or to be feared, but to become illegible. Your primary tool in this endeavor is the mastery of stillness. When disrespected, your instinct is to act, to speak, to do something to re-establish equilibrium. The strategist understands that a calculated inaction is often the most powerful action of all. A deliberate pause before you respond to any question. A moment of unbroken, calm eye contact in the face of accusation. The choice to let a provocative statement hang in the air unanswered. These are the tools of the illegible. This stillness creates a profound psychological disruption. People are accustomed to the rapid, predictable rhythm of stimulus and response. When you introduce a gap, a silence, you break that rhythm. You force their minds into a state of uncertainty. In that silence, they begin to question themselves. Their aggression, met with a calm void, suddenly seems excessive. Their certainty wavers. They cannot read your intent, and this lack of data is deeply unsettling to the human mind. They are forced to project their own fears and assumptions onto you, and they will almost always assume a depth and calculation that is far greater than their own. You must embrace the wisdom of Sun Tzu's most subtle teaching. Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. In the context of disrespect, this means subverting expectations. When they expect an explosion of rage, a display of strong emotion, you give them imperturbable calm, an appearance of weak passivity. This calm, however, is not weakness. It is the sign of an immense controlled strength that refuses to be baited. Conversely, in a situation that calls for quiet submission, a single, well-placed, and calmly delivered statement of fact can project an unexpected and unshakable strength. You are not a creature of one predictable note, but a master of the entire scale, playing the music the situation requires, not the tune your opponent demands. You are not a rock, which is predictable in its hardness. You are a deep lake. On the surface you are placid and reflective, but beneath lies an unknown depth that commands caution and respect. Over time, these individual acts of calculated perception management coalesce into something far more enduring: your reputation. Your reputation is the shadow you cast upon the world. It is the culmination of every battle you refused to fight, every insult you allowed to dissolve, every moment you chose disciplined calm over chaotic reaction. This shadow enters the room before you do. It influences conversations you are not a part of. It shapes the decisions of others before they ever approach you. It is the most efficient form of power, for it works on your behalf without requiring your active presence or energy. Each time you respond to disrespect with equanimity, you add another layer to this reputation. The first time, it may be dismissed as luck or weakness. The second time, it will be noted as unusual. The third time, it becomes a pattern. Soon, a narrative begins to form around you. He cannot be rattled. Her composure is absolute. She is not someone you can provoke with petty games. This narrative becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Potential adversaries hearing of this reputation will hesitate to test it. Why waste energy launching an attack against a fortress that is known to be impregnable? The cost-benefit analysis is clear. The petty satisfaction of a potential slight is not worth the risk of looking foolish against a wall of unshakable dignity. Your reputation thus becomes a passive deterrent, a psychological field of gravity that repels low-level conflict. It filters out the noise, the drama, and the energy vampires, allowing you to preserve your focus and your will for the battles that truly matter, for the great objectives of your life's campaign. You are no longer wasting ammunition on minor skirmishes along the border. You are conserving it for the decisive engagement. This is the ultimate goal of mastering the psychological battlefield, to build a reputation so powerful in its calm authority that most battles are won before they are ever declared. Your name itself becomes a symbol of a different kind of power, a power that is not demonstrated but simply is, a power that resides not in the clenched fist, but in the open, steady hand. You have learned to become formless, to command the high ground of purpose, and to forge a sovereign kingdom within your own mind. The architecture of invulnerability is now understood. Yet, knowledge alone is a blueprint. It is in the moment of execution that the structure is truly built. So before the final seal of this mastery is applied, ensure that you are committed to this path, that you are subscribed to this channel of thought. For the ultimate wisdom is not for the curious spectator, but for the dedicated practitioner, who seeks to wield it until the end. The final lesson is the art of the decisive stroke, the act that ends the war not with a bang, but with a profound and irreversible silence. The moment of disrespect arrives. The trap is set, the poison is offered. The emotional warlords within you rise, screaming for action. It is in this infinitesimal slice of time, between the stimulus and your potential reaction, that the entire war is won or lost. The amateur believes this moment calls for a brilliant counterattack. The master knows it calls for an act of supreme will. This is the execution of the decisive stroke. It is not an outward action. It is not a word, a glance, or a gesture. It is an internal maneuver of such speed and precision that it is imperceptible to the outside world. Sun Tzu wrote, "The quality of decision is like the well-timed swoop of a falcon, which enables it to strike and destroy its victim." But who or what is the victim? The strategist does not target the offender. The true victim of the falcon's stoop is your own impulse to descend into chaos. You must become that falcon. At the very instant the provocation occurs, your awareness must dive from a great height with blinding speed, not upon your enemy, but upon that nascent, flickering impulse within you to react. You strike it down. You seize your own peace with a predatory focus. You choose your inner state with the same finality a falcon chooses its prey. This is an act of incredible power, a declaration of absolute self-possession. It is a choice, made in a nanosecond, to refuse the reality being presented to you and to impose your own, a reality of unshakable calm. The energy that would have fueled a retort, the adrenaline that would have fed your rage, is instead channeled into this singular, decisive act of internal discipline. You do not suppress the emotion, you vanquish the rebellion it seeks to incite. The battle is over before it could ever begin. This internal strike creates the external reality. Having refused to provide the expected reaction, you now enter the second phase of the maneuver: consolidation and the aftermath. The true strategist is never concerned with the momentary victory, but with the new, stable peace that follows. You do not celebrate your self-control. You do not gloat internally. To do so would be to admit there was a contest in the first place. Instead, you simply observe. You have created a strategic void, and now you watch as your opponent's own energy becomes their undoing. Having launched their attack with the expectation of meeting resistance, they find nothing. Their momentum carries them tumbling into the emptiness you have provided. Their aggression, like a fire doused with sand, is smothered. What unfolds is a beautiful and terrible thing to witness. The offender is left completely isolated in the landscape of the interaction. Their disrespect, which required your reaction to be validated, now hangs in the air, exposed and pathetic. It is a dissonant note that has no harmony, no echo. All eyes are not on you, the target, but on them, the source of the gracelessness. They, not you, are now the object of scrutiny. In their attempt to make you lose your balance, they have irrevocably lost their own. They may double down, launching a second, more desperate attack, but it will be met with the same profound stillness. They are now fighting a ghost, punching at mist, and their frantic efforts only serve to highlight their own impotence and lack of control. They have single-handedly defeated themselves. Your only role was to refuse to save them from that fate. This is the essence of subduing the enemy without fighting. You did not push them off the cliff. You simply stepped aside when they chose to run towards it. The peace that follows this encounter is not a temporary truce. It is a fundamental restructuring of the power dynamic. This is the enduring peace. You have not just won an exchange, you have taught a lesson. You have demonstrated that you are not fertile ground for the seeds of discord. You have established a boundary, not with a wall of anger, but with an ocean of calm. Future challenges will be dissuaded not by the memory of your ferocity, but by the memory of your unshakable composure. Your reputation, as discussed, becomes your vanguard, silently communicating the terms of engagement to all who would approach. The peace you have created is lasting because it is based not on fear of your retaliation, but on respect for your discipline. It is a peace born from the undeniable evidence that you operate on a plane where petty conflicts cannot survive. Your energy is a currency you refuse to spend on unworthy transactions. This brings us to the final, philosophical conclusion. The journey you have undertaken, from understanding the weakness of reaction to mastering the decisive stroke of will, was never truly about how to handle disrespect. That was merely the training ground, the dojo. The true purpose of this art is the cultivation of an ultimate form of power, a power so complete that it transcends the very concept of conflict. We are taught to think of power as the ability to impose our will upon others, to win arguments, to dominate our enemies. This is a crude and primitive understanding. It is the power of the barbarian king, who must always be vigilant, always fighting to keep his throne. True power, the power of the master strategist, is the ability to shape reality itself, to arrange the board so masterfully that the pieces move themselves into the positions you desire. It is the power of the empty throne that no one dares to approach. Why? Not because it is guarded by ferocious soldiers, but because the legitimacy and authority of the ruler are so absolute, so self-evident, that the very thought of a challenge is an absurdity. Your inner state is that throne. By mastering it, by cultivating a profound and unshakable connection to your own purpose and dignity, you achieve a state of being that makes conflict with you irrelevant. People do not challenge you, not because they fear your response, but because your very presence makes their petty grievances seem insignificant. You radiate an aura of purpose that starves the oxygen from trivial disputes. The supreme power is not to be the most fearsome warrior in the arena. It is to be the architect of the arena itself, to have designed it in such a way that the only logical outcome is the one that serves your ultimate mission. You have not won the game, you have become the game, and that is the only response to disrespect that is truly and eternally unbeatable.